Hembo has called out Sanchez. He wants Sanchez. Which team owns the best record in divisional play over the last 5 seasons?
Come on, Sanchez.
Get it.
Chiefs. Phone a friend would be Chiefs. I'm going to go with
Jets.
You're going to go with?
Patriots.
Oh, my goodness. It's the Chiefs. They're giving you the answer. The whole room.
You know what? Mark,
Are you
kidding me? We just discussed it.
Are you
kidding me? We just discussed it.
If you could hear the enormous grief that is being given to Sanchez by the guys at the opposite end of the room, we all said there's no way it's the Patriots, who, by the way, the Patriots are 22-5. The Chiefs are 23-3.
One game.
That's the good news for Kansas City. But last night, there was some really, really bad news. Let's take another look at what happened last night. Chiefs a mile high taking on the Broncos. Patrick Mahomes, before the game, the concern was the ankle. That looked fine early. Certainly McCole Hardman looks fine early, taking this one in for a 21-yard touchdown on the Chiefs' first drive of the game, and they're up 7-6, and all is going well. And then, football fans everywhere, avert your eyes. On a 4th and 1 from the 5-yard line, this is Patrick Mahomes on a quarterback sneak. If you watch, the right knee going into the pile as he is obviously in serious pain. And again, I'll make the point, you can tell from a player's body language the difference between being hurt and being injured. He knows something's wrong with that knee immediately. You see it get rolled up on, and as you watch closely, you will see them popping that kneecap back into place. The story will come today. He will undergo an MRI. Adam Schefter said it'll be the most important MRI in franchise history. The whole league looking on as Patrick Mahomes will find out today just how bad this knee injury is. Chiefs go on to an easy win, 30-6 the final. How good has he been? Well, I mean, let's look at the numbers on the right side of this screen. He's thrown 65 touchdowns in 23 games. Going back to the start of last season, he's won as many games as anybody, tied at the top with Tom Brady. So he's just that important of a player. And you know, I said it earlier today, and I brought it up in our meeting because it's kind of hard to figure out a way to verbalize this. When I first saw the injury last night, my first thought was not about what it means to the Chiefs, what it means about winning championships. It was about the league. It was about the league has been so good for the last year and a half because for the most part, quarterbacks have been healthy. This guy's the best one, the most watchable one. The sport needs Patrick Mahomes.
There's no doubt about that. Look, everyone knows that quarterbacks are the most marketable players on football teams in the NFL, and everyone knows that that's primarily what drives viewership. Seeing special quarterback play. Look, we all love the other components of the game, whether it be good defense, good running backs, good pass rush, you know, flamboyant cornerbacks like Deion Sanders, Jalen Ramsey. Deion Sanders is the past, Jalen Ramsey of the present. But Pat Mahomes represents the future. The league knows it. The Kansas City Chiefs know it. The casual fan knows it. If anybody knows one player on the Kansas City Chiefs, it's him. And I'll tell you what, it's representative. I can say this. Let me give you the perfect example of this. Look, I have a daughter who's in college who watches football, knows that her father made his living playing football and talking about football now. Doesn't watch football all the time, but there's one person that she knows. She knows who Pat Mahomes is. And you see kids now, you know, they're buying Halloween costumes with the Pat Mahomes hair, all this stuff. So he is very, very important to the NFL right now and in the future, and he represents everything that you want young players to represent.
I want to talk specifically about the injury. If you're with us at the beginning of the show, Sanchez, you had what we think is a similar injury. Again, we're still waiting for the full details of what his is, but you had what seems to have been a similar injury.
Right.
When you said when you came back in 3 or 4 weeks, you had to wear a brace. It limited your athleticism. Give us a little more of that, because it may be what Patrick Mahomes will deal with when he returns.
Of course. Hopefully it's just that, and you're just battling swelling. That's the real issue. Get the swelling down, and then it's as tolerated. Wear a brace. See how you can do. And this is a tough kid, man. He was playing with a bum ankle already.
Right. You
got to drag this kid off the field, right? You got to literally carry him off the field. The fact that he walked off on his own is a great sign. And talking with doctors, like I said, I'm not a doctor, but when you have to manually reposition that kneecap, the only fear is right under your kneecap, there's like a brake pad under there,
right,
and you can have a chondral defect. Basically, any kind of cartilage in there that gets disrupted, or if a piece breaks off, that's your only fear. That would be their worst nightmare, because that's surgery pretty quick. If nothing like that happens, work with the swelling, and get back on the field as tolerated.
They'll find that out again today in the MRI. Vilma, give me a sense of the other guys in that locker room right now. What are they talking about as they know they'll be without him for at least a period of time?
It's all about accountability right now. When you talk about the other guys, the other leaders in the locker room and the veterans, they're saying, all right, it's my time to step up. It's my time to show out in an essence, because now it's not the Mahomes show. It's about how are we going to develop as a team and how we're going to win these games, because they have 2 very tough games coming up, by the way.
Oh, by the way, the Broncos stink. Let's take a look at their side of this game last night. They were terrible. Joe Flacco was sacked a career-high 8 times in this loss against the Chiefs. Their offense only managed 6 total points. They're now 2-5, and there'll be a lot of eyes on general manager John Elway, who has still, among other things, not gotten the quarterback position right. The QB situation for the Broncos, pretty much since Peyton Manning rode off to the sunset, has been difficult to say the least. Elway's made a variety of acquisitions in a variety of different ways, including a first-round draft pick that you see there in Paxton Lynch, and it just hasn't worked out. And, you know, Lewis, as a person who has made your living putting together teams and all that and evaluating talent, someone like me might look at it and say, John Elway is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. How can he not get the quarterback position right?
There's a lot of factors that go into it as far as quarterback play and how ultimately it winds up panning itself out. And sometimes, you know what, I don't know. You know, I find it interesting that sometimes in the NFL, when you have guys who are great players at certain positions, they don't necessarily always. That doesn't necessarily always equate to the fact that they can evaluate that position in the same way. Now, that being said, there's a lot of things that go into this as far as quarterback success and failure in the NFL. And for some reason, he hasn't been able to identify the kind of traits that he wants and or put the kind of team around these specific players in order for them to ultimately give him the kind of performance that he wants. I think the best one that he's brought in here so far, we have not seen yet, that being Drew Lock. And I'm sure they are waiting and they are basically sitting on their hands and just sitting here, you know, chomping at the bit to get him on the field right now to see what they have in the future. But there's so many other things that are going to go into this, namely that offensive line. Lewis, it is a problem for this football team.
Elway has had issues much bigger than just the quarterback.
Sure.
You look at everyone that he's drafted from 2011, he only has 2 that made the Pro Bowl. Julius Thomas and Von Miller. He had another one make the Pro Bowl, but not on his watch. So when you talk about drafting players, this is not Ozzie Newsome that we're talking about right now. John Elway has not done a good job overall, period. He just has not done a good job.
It isn't just really just the player personnel part of it, Greeny. There's also the coach selection part of it, the developmental part of it. He's overseeing the entire football operation, so not just trying to select quarterbacks and or other players. How about the people that he's bringing in here to develop these guys and make sure that they continue to progress?
And that tells me Elway doesn't really know what he wants.
Well, right now
he wants a good quarterback, but he doesn't know how to marry that with someone to develop the quarterback.
It becomes a very complicated situation because John Elway is, and deservedly so, by far the most beloved athletic figure in the history of that city. And no one deserves it more than he does. So it becomes very difficult, I'm sure, even for the most ardent fans of the team, to criticize him strongly. One of the questions that will come now is, should they trade Von Miller? It came up yesterday with Dan Graziano here on our show. The trade deadline is around the corner. This team isn't going anywhere this year. Should they trade Von Miller?
If they feel as though they are years away and that this rebuild is going to be much more significant than maybe they want to actually admit, then maybe you should look into that. If someone makes you that kind of offer and feels as though they are a good quality pass rusher that just turned 30 years old and will be 31 in, I believe, February of 2020, if someone's going to make you that kind of offer, then you have to listen to it. And I think it may head down that road. It really may. And Von Miller is one of those people you really can't envision him playing for any other football team, considering what he's done for this franchise.
Yeah.
But this program has some holes, some major holes, and they need assets in order to build it back up.
Right. I mean, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. He's an MVP. He got paid a bunch of money.
Right.
He was on his first read. I mean, you guys saw it in those highlights. Literally gets back to the top of his drop, makes one hitch in his drop. Boom, he's getting hit. So it's not just, okay, what do we do now? Fire sale everybody. I don't know if that's the answer. And I don't know. I'm sure you're going to get whatever you want for Von Miller, but I don't know. Like you said, unless they're 3-4 years away from doing anything,
right?
And you don't let him walk out of the building.
That's the kind of thing they're going to have to assess.
Well, they're 2 weeks away from the trade deadline, so that's the decision. If they're going to do it, they have to make.
I really hope they don't.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's get up and go. I got a couple of other things. Bobby Carpenter. We start with the newest member of the Rams, Jalen Ramsey, reported to practice Thursday. What kind of impact does he have immediately?
Huge impact. Wade Phillips' defense isn't overly complicated. A lot of it is predicated on man-to-man coverage, being able to lock down a defender. So if you get Jalen Ramsey out there in practice, you simplify what he does. He gives you that eraser out on the corner against Julio Jones, one of the best wide receivers in the league, and it's their first matchup, so I'm eager to see how they're going to match up there and how they'll play, but it should be no problem for Jalen Ramsey.
Get up and go to basketball. The start of the NBA regular season is right around the corner. Zion Williamson will be sitting out the Pelicans preseason finale tonight with right knee soreness. Didn't make the trip to New York for the game. No timetable has been given as of yet. Here's Woj with the latest.
I'm told this is not your normal preseason rest, that there is knee soreness and they want to get it evaluated, and that we're going to know more in the next 24 hours. But Zion Williamson stayed back in Louisiana. The team's in New York playing tomorrow night at the Garden. And so we'll know more, but they're certainly going to be extra cautious with Zion Williamson at this early juncture in his career. And he's going to get some testing done on that right knee soreness.
Look, knee injuries have been a problem this year. Remember at Duke, he had to miss 5 games after he blew out his shoe. In the Summer League, he tweaked the knee in the opener, and now at the season opener on Tuesday, he's slated to miss at least this